Hey, what's up everybody, it's Nova, and today's video is an Assassination Rogue Mythic Plus guide. I'm going to go over two different builds that I like using. Right now I am 2500 and was able to time a few 10s, timed an 11. Still working on a couple of the other ones, but overall pretty good success. Obviously, before we get into a lot of this stuff, caveat, you know, playing with friends, playing with groups is always going to make it that much better. I did have to pug quite a bit and then played with some friends as well, so kind of like half and half. Do not get frustrated when you try to queue for groups and constantly get denied. I was constantly getting denied even with like 2400 rating to 9s and 8s, and the key holders had like 1800 rating, so it's just a process. But I'm going to go over my builds, kind of play styles that I like, that hopefully will help you in some way and help you in your keys. So we're going to jump in. So the first thing I want to go over is there's two different builds that I like to use, and it's kind of contingent on group makeup maybe sometimes, or what type of keys you're doing. The first build is a Mythic Plus like bleed build, focuses on your bleeds essentially. We have sudden demise for the extra bleed damage, and then procs for when they're low on health. You have indiscriminate carnage obviously to apply bleeds quickly. We're running improved garrote, shrouded suffocation, Kingsbane, and then arterial precision for the AoE shiv. So when you shiv into a mob, 4 additional targets, their damage they take for bleeds is like increased by 30%, which is huge. I run blindside for the extra mutilate and ambush procs, mostly for bosses so that you can do decent single target damage. And we're taking like one of these, so it converts 35% of your mutilate and ambush damage into nature. So when you're getting these procs, you're also doing additional nature damage, and that also goes into caustic spatter. So when you're doing nature damage, it spreads that damage, or your poisons essentially, out to AoE mobs. So pretty much straightforward. Like the rest of this build is going to be the same for the other build as well. We're running deeper sanguine stratagem over here and deeper stratagem on this side. We're running resounding clarity over here so we can get empowered combo points to use. I like to use ambush for the extra combo point if running the blindside build, but if not, then you'll want to run tight spender. This one I like to run blackjack over here, and I'm going to talk about defensives in a little bit, but I just want to give you a quick rundown of the two different builds. So this is the bleed build. Thistle Teed, like all this is the same as my other one. The biggest difference is we're taking this AoE shiv, taking shiv here, we're taking a lot more on this side. We're not taking poison bomb in this build or dragon temper blades. The other alternative build is my hybrid build. Well, not my hybrid build, but you know, the one that I'm using. We have dragon temper blades here. We're using poison bomb, amplifying poison, and we're dropping basically the AoE shiv that increases bleed damage. We're dropping a lot, like pretty much everything on this side. And so the biggest difference right off the top that I want you to know is this build is better for bosses. It's better for tyrannical when bosses have more health. That's because you're getting that extra envenom damage with amplifying poison and being able to use deadly plus that. You still get some decent AoE through poison bomb. But this also is a little bit better for single target damage versus this shiv, for example, is not going to be beneficial for you on the bosses themselves. You also have the serrated bone spike that's going to be passive procs into mobs, so you're getting some extra damage to AoE as well, but just not on demand, kind of when you want. It's more passive. This will also be better for the bosses in the dungeons. So this build in general, again, you'll notice over here is pretty similar. I swapped tight spender since I'm not running the blindside ambush proc stuff. But this build right here is definitely better for tyrannical, or if you like doing more damage for bosses. As you get into higher keys and 10s, you're going to have fortified and tyrannical. Tyrannical is the affix where you're going to have increased boss health, and then fortified is where it buffs the mobs up. When you're doing keys below 10, and if it's not tyrannical weak, so if it's fortified, I pretty much favor doing the bleed build. Reason being is you don't have tyrannicals, so you don't have to worry about the bosses being really hard to take down or take a while, and you have more damage into the AoE pack or the trash mobs who are going to be kind of buffed. Having these kind of worked out better for me in pushing those keys, whereas once you start getting into 10s, there's going to be a much stronger case for the hybrid build, where you'll still do decent AoE. This build, again, you'll still do decent AoE, but you're just going to have much better output for the boss fights, which can wipe groups once you start getting into the higher keys as well. So those are the two differences. You have the hybrid build, focuses on dragon tempered. I'll have these linked below, and you can tweak them how you like if you play with one and you want to change something around. And then we have the bleed. Before we get into any of the defensives and some other things like your role in a group, I'm going to show you just the general playstyle and rotations for these builds, and then we'll get into some of the utility stuff afterward. So we're going to talk about this build first, the one with Arterial Precision, bleed damage all around, and then you have blindside procs. You have an AoE shiv that also buffs 30% bleed damage for 8 seconds to 4 mobs. So imagine this is a trash pack you're walking into, and you're running this build. Obviously, you're going to want to ambush something first, so I usually pick the biggest, most of the time, unless you have something that's like casting out here that you need to interrupt. This is where having Iron Wire is going to be really good. I run these in both builds, and we'll talk more about it later, but it's going to interrupt or like silence mobs, so it'll interrupt them and make them have to walk towards the tank. And then it also makes them do 15% reduced damage for 8 seconds. Really huge, great utility. We'll get into that in a bit. But generally, you go find the biggest mob that there is that's not going to die. You can ambush them to get your death mark up. And then we're going to run into garrotes and ruptures. Now remember, when you garrote something, there's a cap on it. So when you garrote, right now, see that mob didn't get it, that mob didn't get it. So you're going to want to garrote again to guarantee that these get them. So now they all have garrotes. You're going to want to do that pretty quickly. But just realize that like when you garrote once in a giant pack, you're not actually putting garrote on all of them. There is a cap. So we're going to kind of walk away for a second. So you're going to open up ambush first. Garrote something, maybe twice if you need a silence, but you usually can garrote into a rupture, and rupture is going to be the same way. It's not going to put it on all the mobs right away. So you garrote, rupture, then garrote again. If there's time, I might try to like put a shiv and get the AoE bonus to the mobs going, and then I'll rupture one more time before indiscriminate carnage falls, and that usually gets up garrote on all the targets and rupture on all the targets. And so again, remember with Arterial Precision, shiv is going to, do some damage on its own. It's going to increase nature and bleed damage done to the targets by 30% for 8 seconds. So it's a big buff to like your AoE trash pool. You work in any trinkets like Scarden's Grace or anything that gives you like mastery or agility, and that's going to buff that as well. So opener, just opening sequence again for like general trash pack stuff. We're going to ambush, garrote, rupture. Now we're going to garrote again. Sometimes we get 2 out and then rupture. And now they should all have garrotes. See, I'm tiring through all of them. They all have garrotes and rupture. You want to shiv into this, and now they're all like 4 of these targets are taking more damage, 30% more damage from that. I do not have my poisons on, I think. Yeah, so I didn't even have my poisons on here. Obviously, they'd be taking increased deadly poison damage. So let's walk away from there. So just keep that in mind for your AoE packs when you're running the bleed build. Or any build for the matter. Garrote always works that way. Rupture works that way. You're going to have to like multi-hit them to get in all the mobs. I'm just trying to let this fall off. So, ambush gets our Death Stalker mark. Of course, we want to maintain that. We're going to garrote, rupture, get that on, and then shiv. Sometimes you can shiv if the mobs seem to die very quickly. You might want to garrote, rupture, garrote, shiv. That way you go ahead and get increased damage while they're dying pretty quick. And then rupture again. If they're really, really like low health mobs, you're going to want to garrote, rupture, garrote again, shiv, and then probably Crimson Tempest. That way you can get that extra bleed on there. And remember, sudden demise, you'll get sudden demise procs on lower keys much more often than you will on higher keys. Just because mobs are going to have more health in the higher keys. And this is gonna, your bleeds aren't gonna outdo their health at 10%. But if they're lower health mobs like non-elite, generally I'll do this. So I'll come in, let's pretend these are all like non-elite mobs, die pretty quick, and this is the elite. I'll open up, ambush, garrote, rupture, shiv, garrote, and then Crimson Tempest. And then now they're all melting, they should proc sudden demise. I'll go ahead and get Caustic Spatter up here. And then we just start bursting this, like as much as possible, and Envenoms. We have Phantom Knives at this point. If they're still up, that way you get a lot of combo points right away, and you just Phantom Knives and Venom, Phantom Knives and Venom, while Caustic Spatter's up. So we got to talk about Caustic Spatter. You're going to want to be running this. This gives you basically AoE splash damage whenever you mutilate a target that's afflicted by your Rupture and Deadly Poison. So once you get things up, you're going to want to make sure that you have Rupture rolling on this, which you should, because that's the target you're doing it on. And then you're going to have to mutilate or ambush proc into the target to trigger the Caustic Spatter debuff that looks like this. And it lasts for, I think, 10 seconds. And pretty much any poisonous nature damage you do in Venom, Shiv, King's Bane, like all that stuff's going to splatter out to the other guys. So like I'll show you that real quick. So we'll ambush this guy. We'll go rote. We'll rupture. We're just gonna do it once for the video. So we have caustic spatter here, and now anytime I hit, you see it splashes, and if I do envenom, it's gonna splash as well. If I Kingsbane, it's gonna start ticking on all them as well. If I shiv, is gonna buff it. So caustic spatter is really important that you want to make sure you have up this buff when you're trying to AoE after your initial opener of getting Garrote and Ruptures up. If you're doing your boss fight, really it's just a straightforward single target rotation. You're going to ambush to get Death Mark up. You're going to Garrote, Rupture. We're not running Bone Spike here, so you are going to have to get a Slice and Dice up as well. And then you use your trinkets. Thistle Tea gives you Mastery Increase. You would do this before Shiv, so that your Shiv is going to be buffed. And then you're going to Shiv, so buffs your damage by 30% for your Nature and Bleeds. And then we're going to Kingsbane, so that way we're getting our first initial hit of Kingsbane. Right now it says like 257k. That hit is going to be buffed by Shiv and Thistle Tea. That's why you want to do these before doing that. That initial hit will be strong, and then we'll Shiv right at the tail end of it, Vanish to get improved Garrote. I'll show you the whole rotation here in a sec, but just trying to give you reasoning why. You might have seen my raid build video, and so some of this is familiar. Improved Garrote, 50% increased damage when you're using it out of stealth, and then we want to Vanish to reapply this. And caustic spatter really doesn't help you here for bosses unless they have ads. This is unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Again, this is what we're trying to utilize for like boss damage. This will tick once it's 35%. You kind of get an execute Kingsbane. So here we go. Here's just a generic boss fight, single target fight. We're gonna ambush, Garrote, Rupture. I like to Garrote her again, and then Slice and Dice. We're gonna Thistle Tea, pop trinkets, Shiv, and then Echoing Reprimand, and then we just go into burst phase here. We're gonna clear the Witness Fan. Try to get all the way up. We need a Shiv at the tail end of Kingsbane. And then our Garrote's about to fall off, so we're gonna Vanish to get another improved Garrote. We're just trying to get all the way up here. Thistle Tea if you're gonna burst with Lust. And we're gonna need to get a Rupture up here. It's about to fall. And so you just basically just keep this going. Now at this point is when we'll pop our Thistle Tea again, because we should be in pooling mode, so we're not gonna like spam too much. We're gonna try to utilize this. We got our combo here. We're gonna wait. We're gonna Garrote up, and this is just keeping in Rupture, Garrote. And then the last thing you want to make sure is if you're running Deathstalker, which I am, you want to make sure you're keeping up your Deathstalker procs. So this right here that just procced, this 3. And this is very important because if you have this up, it's going to buff your Hunt Them Down damage. And this should be a good bit of just passive. I'm at 7%, and I'm pretty sure I didn't have it up for at some point. So if this goes away, you're no longer doing that damage. So I'll show you that in the talents. Hunt Them Down, auto attacks against smart targets, deal an additional 26k plague damage. So it's literally just your auto attacks, it's just your passive damage. You want to make sure you keep this Deathstalker mark up as much as possible. So when you use it all up, so it's about to go away here. Alright, so it's gone. I'm no longer getting extra passive damage. So at this time, I need to prioritize getting that back up. You can mutilate until you get max envenom, and you have to get all the way here to make it proc. Or if you're running Echoing Recommend, you can hit this. Make sure you get an empowered orb, a combo point, and then it will give it to you that way. So ideally, you can really get it quickly through this, but if not, you have to max out and then use it. So make sure when you get this buff up as much as possible. That's pretty much straightforward single target build for that. And now let's quickly talk about our other build, the hybrid build. So this one again is geared towards more tyrannical bosses. You're going to be doing more boss damage at the expense of AoE damage for trash packs and mobs. All right, so same process here now when we're doing trash packs with this build. We no longer have the AoE Shiv buff for 8 seconds. So we're going to still open up the same way. We're going to ambush to get Deathstalker's mark up. We're going to Garrote, Rupture, Garrote again, Rupture again to try to make sure they all have bleeds. Because you're still getting pretty decent bleed damage from Sudden Demise. Improved Garrotes over here. So like all of these are still giving you good Garrote damage. So you really want to make sure Garrotes go up on everything. And we're going to utilize Caustic Spatter and Poison Bombs for the additional AoE. So Poison Bombs will proc when you do your Envenoms. And then we really want to make sure we get Caustic Spatter up here so that when you use Kingsbane, it's spreading that damage over here and any of your other attacks. So for this build, the rotation is going to be pretty similar. We're going to ambush, Garrote, Rupture, make sure we get everything on. At that point, we're going to want to Mutilate to get Caustic Spatter up. And then we'll Thistle Tea, Shiv, Kingsbane. That way the Caustic Spatter will spread all of our damage. And we'll go into Fan of Knives span into Envenom. You can also throw in a Crimson Tempest pretty early on. And then after that Crimson Tempest, definitely Fan of Knives, Envenom, Fan of Knives, Envenom. And just make sure that you have to Mutilate every once in a while to keep Caustic Spatter up. So let's pretend this is like a pretty big pool, big health mobs. We're going to ambush, Garrote, Rupture, Garrote again, Rupture again. Now we'll Garrote one more time. We have it. Slice and Dice. Now we're going to get Caustic Spatter up. Fan of Knives, Crimson Tempest, Thistle Tea, Shiv, Kingsbane. And then we just go into a big rotation of Envenoms here. And a Fan of Knives, Envenoms. Then we're hoping for procs like that Poison Bob. We got to reapply this one. You just keep doing this. We could have Crypt there. Make sure we're going to have to Crimson Tempest and Garrote. And we just keep doing this. We got to apply our Death Mark, so we had to do that. And then we Mutilate to get our Caustic Spatter up. And we're just hoping for lots of Envenom procs here. Sometimes that doesn't happen. But this is like your other ways. So I told you with this build, you're going to do probably less mob damage consistently. If you get good procs, it'll be just as good, but it won't be as controlled by you. But the flip side is with this build is when you go over to do the bosses, you should have a little bit better output. So for boss rotation, it's going to be similar as to the other build. You just have bigger Envenoms to work with, and you get to save a global with Slice and Dice. You don't have to press Garrote that second time, because Rupture from Bone Spike will give you combo points to instantly press it. So I'll show you here. We'll go work it in slow motion first. We're going to ambush, Garrote, Rupture. This gives us combos to instantly press Slice and Dice. Now we can pop everything. Thistle Tea, Shiv, Trinkets, Kingsbane. Get a max one real quick. And then here, we want to clear the witness, and then we just spam this. So we have to. We should have another Shiv. We should Shiv for the tail end of this, and then we'll Vanish out to get up of Empowered Garrote. And you're just pretty much at this point, make sure you have all your bleeds up. We need to reapply Rupture here. So we're gonna reapply Rupture. If you're running out of energy, just make sure you give yourself energy. So it's again, keep up Garrotes, keep up Ruptures. Make sure you keep up this proc. So you gotta be aware. So that way you're getting that process damage. Amplifying Poison stacks up. So then when you go to the pulling phase, just make sure that you have enough to like really pull there and utilize these stacks when you do it. And you see you get Poison Bomb procs too for single target. But this build should be better for bosses. A little bit less better for mobs. The bleed build, my other build will be better for mobs and trash packs, and just a tiny bit less effective for bosses. I think in general, most of the hierarchies, personally, I enjoyed the bleed build play a little bit better, even for the 10s that I've been doing. But I'm pretty sure that like a lot of the top ranking parses and rogues for like on Warcraft logs, they're using the hybrid build for the hierarchies. Last thing I want to touch on is just some general utility stuff that you guys need to make sure you're aware of. These utility and defensive things I use for both builds. I highly recommend you use Iron Wire. This is incredible and really helpful, especially if you're pugging. But it still works just as good for really well put together groups, or if you're playing with friends. The Garrote basically silences target for 6 seconds. So when you open out of stealth, those targets they cannot cast for 6 seconds, which is huge. I mean, that's 6 seconds less damage that they're doing to you. It pulls in the mobs. They're just free. Another good thing about this is that enemies that you silence they also do reduced damage for 8 seconds, 15% damage. So if you think about like a big pack, that's really good damage reduction, and then good utility in silencing enemies. You'll see like there's going to be a lot of times when you're attacking mobs that you can do your opener, but you may need to burn a Vanish or burn a Shadow Meld if you have it to reapply that Vanished Garrote out of stealth, to just make sure that your group doesn't wipe. Like if you pull an extra pack, especially on hierarchies, a good time to Vanish. Go ahead and burn that Vanish cooldown, and you might be saving it for the boss. Go ahead and burn it. Get some Empowered Garrotes up. It's going to silence everything. It's going to make it easier for your healer to be able to sustain and like heal people initially. It'll help with like the additional kicks that you might not have to go around. But please make sure you take that. That'll help with just the survivability of your groups. And if you want to succeed in keys, especially pugging. Another like important talent that I like to use, tricks is also really good if your group is can handle a lot of like the surviving part on their own or mechanics. But I like running blackjack because I use the AoE blind a lot of times as like an emergency. But basically any mob that is sapped or blinded, they'll have 30% reduced damage and healing for 6 seconds. And what we do is we run this AoE blind right here. It's a 50% CD reduction. It lasts a little bit less, but you're using it as an interrupt anyway. And it doesn't break your bleeds, or it doesn't like erase your bleed damage or dots and stuff. So like if I come over here and I garrote, rupture, garrote, and I blind this, see like it interrupted and then my bleeds still keep going. So it's a really good like AoE interrupt. It will interrupt whatever mobs that are near it and interrupt. So make sure you use those. You have them for a reason. They're really, really good. My stats have been around this, not exact, but 47% mastery, 11% haste, 25% crit. Personally, I would start trying to drop some of my haste down, maybe like 9 or 8, and just keep buffing up my mastery. I kind of want to get that as high as possible at this point. I feel like that's going to be the way to go. But obviously, we're still working with what we have. I mean, I still have like a veteran necklace, 8 of 8. Obviously 615, so it's not like the lowest of anything. It's pretty good. I'm happy where it's at. Hopefully with the vaults now that we've gotten myth slots, we'll be able to pick up stuff, but that's a different topic for a different day. Hopefully this helps, guys. I will have these builds linked in the description for you. If you have questions, just drop them in the comments. If I can help you, I certainly will. I'll try my best. I'm still learning myself. And I'm going to be uploading some of my Mythic Plus runs here soon. So if you want to just watch raw gameplay, I'll have those up for you as well. So thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you guys' support. And until next time, I will see you later. Take care, everybody.